with this syllabus, actually, you can see the general introduction, what is language acquisitions and development, right? So I would like to read that. So I think in order to give you like a general informations about that. Language acquisitions and development seeks to introduce the students how language is acquired. How this one is the next questions actually that I want to ask you later on. The central aim of this subject is to understand how children in general acquire their first language so effortlessly as the first language acquisitions, yeah, and how young and adult people later on learn English as a second or a foreign language. The acquisitions of structures will be detailed on the discussions of contemporary philosophies with selected topics related to language use and ideology. And although at times we will touch on issues of the phonological and discourse acquisitions, but the majority of lectures will be the syntactic and semantic issues within the normal first language acquisitions, and with some attentions to the relevant materials from second language acquisitions and studies of linguistic deviance. Yeah. So a little note here, it is recommended that students have working knowledge of introductory linguistic concepts. So basically what you are studying at the moment with the introductions of the study of language, it should come first, but because you have the class actually all together then, okay, so I hope that you can balance that in the information that you learn over there. Yeah. So all the information similar to this, and then if you look at the syllabus, um, because again, then I made you quite often. I really would like to make this class also engaging, not only engaging for me, but also especially for you. So then probably later on, we would like to vary all the exercise, and you can suggest me similar exercise. Um, for the test, this is similar like what I also what you call explained to you yesterday. But before we go to the test, this is the general course objective, so that you are identify some terminologies associated with the first and second language acquisitions. Yeah, so acquisitions, that's one terminology, and then later on you would like to see the difference between acquisition and learning itself. Describe stages of first language and second language acquisition, and then examine various theories in the first and second language acquisitions, because basic theories, once again, I don't want you to remember that, but I want you to understand the theories and then later on use the theories as a basis for you to discuss many things related to your subject, related to your research, related to your what you call that projects in Faculty of Education. Also differentiate some of the factors relating the successful development of bi and multilingualisms. Examine the relationship between language competence and literacy. Okay, so we talked about literacy also here. And then explain what language awareness consists and how various language socialization processes can aid in language development. Evaluate individual differences, which is really unique. Yeah, this is lots of discussions actually, and then probably mostly come from your own experience, or I don't know, I mean that your sisters, your brothers, whoever is just around you, that you can have a look on their own or individual differences of learning language, and the effect of age and gender actually on second language acquisition. Yeah, and then present their knowledge and opinion on language variations and conduct a mini research related to language acquisitions and development. So the final project in this case is actually uh, if what you call that yesterday for introductions of language actually, but our project I'm thinking about, we would like to make a small research. We do the research and then we would like to present the research actually. Then again, this is a group work, yeah, 2 or 3 students work together, and then later on we would like to present that. Okay, good. Consultation time. I have time here. Then, well, basically, this is just what you call it, general information for you. Then you can use that. Our Zoom meeting will be the same. Yeah, we're gonna use this link all the time because this is my personal Zoom room, then we can use that actually later on this. Um, my textbook, what I write down here only two, but actually I provide four. The things is actually I use the first one as the core, and then I provide the PDF file again that together with the in the link of the textbook you can have a look. There are another two, but this one, the Christine Goh and Rita Silver, with this title, I only have the hard copy, and then it's available in campus. I even cannot bring that home because it's there. So, but that's actually just for the support. Yeah, it's not the main. The main one is actually I like to use Lightbound Spada and uh, Nina Renta and then Ren J in this case. So you can have a look on that. We will have 7 main topics here. Yeah. So, and then later on, you can have looked on the what do you call it, the discussions on this. And the way I grade our class is based similar like what we had yesterday. Yeah, I mean, attendance, participations, weekly quiz, reflection, group work, midterm project. Midterm project, once again, then probably the same like yesterday. Later on, be prepared to read your own questions and the answers. Yeah, because later on, I will mark that according to how will you elaborate your questions and how will you provide the answers then. I do not expect the quantity, but I expect the quality. Means that your depth, what do you call it, analysis on this. So I hope that this process of learning is not only what you call that ended up with the memorizations, but again then part of analysis, part of your critical thinking, and then also related to your ability, your skill in terms of summarizing, paraphrasing, and doing the synthesizing in this case. Okay, similar with that, the same thing, informations, regulations, also something similar like what we had before. Okay, any questions on this before we continue? No questions?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet, sir.
Not yet, sir.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
In the first part, we would like to talk about what's so-called by language learning in early childhood. I would like to play a video for you. Yeah, this is a good video, interesting video. Yeah, but later on, please think of this. Yeah, watch the above video. Would like to watch that together, and then later on, identify how could Lucy has a different language development than Pete. And then the second one, what factors do influence the difference? And the last question is exactly similar like the questions being introduced here. Can someone like Pete later on still catch up later in his life actually, or maybe find another good way to express himself, probably similar like Lucy. Yeah. So I hope. Have you watched this one before? Not yet?
Never, sir.
Okay, good.
I haven't.
And I want you to work in pairs, and then we'll do that in the shared Google Slides here, yeah, later on. So we'll work together and then identify the key. Okay, now I would like to play that, so try to listen that carefully, yeah. If the connection is not really good, then you can access that and play that by your own. But again, then I would like to play that together here, so then you can follow the discussions later on.
Inventions. None was more consequential than the birth of language. Before its creation, each person's knowledge was limited to what he or she experienced directly. Afterwards, someone who learned something could share it with anybody else. In this video, we'll look at 4 things known about language learning in general, and then listen to the story of Lucky Lucy and Poor Pete to understand the importance of language in everyday life. Our brain's foundation is built through experiences early in life. Pat Levitt from the Center of the Developing Child at Harvard University studied our brain development over the course of our life extensively. He showed how the brain's ability to change dramatically drops in the years of life, while the amount of effort such change requires increases. Another research showed that at age 5, 90% of a kid's brain has been formed. If during these years the child is blocked from receiving stimulating experiences, the language center and other parts of the brain are likely to remain weak for life. We learn language socially by observing and imitating others. Some 1,000 years ago, German Emperor Friedrich II wanted to prove the opposite and showed that we develop language naturally all by ourselves. He made his nannies raise some children. They were allowed to feed and clean them, but not to interact socially or ever speak a word. Not one child learned to speak, but instead, they all died. For the same reason, toddlers can't learn language via tape or technology. They need to be motivated through a human relationship. Then they pay attention and learn. Our language brain growth is strongest in year 1. If we study the brain's development by the rate of new synapse formation over the first 11 months of life and then the next 15 years, we can see how much the first 5 years matter. The growth in the part of the brain responsible for language peaks between birth and age 3. During this critical period, children can learn a new word every 90 minutes and several languages simultaneously. Our sensory pathways responsible for vision and hearing peak before, which makes sense because we need to see and hear to imitate language. 4-month-old infants, for example, if raised bilingual by a British mom and a Chinese dad, can already differentiate between 2 languages just by observing the lip movements of their caregivers. Higher cognitive function, such as logical reasoning, peaks only once we have the words and know the symbols to make sense of our world. Language makes our world. Rich language skills allow us to really listen, to speak well, to enjoy reading and master writing. They can create an entire world around us. As the German philosopher Wittgenstein said, "The limit of my language is the limit of my world." Let's take, for example, the word daycare center. Some people think of it as a preschool. The Irish call it play school, and the Germans invented the word kindergarten. Only if we know all 3 words can we understand what's possible. Now, let's listen to the story about Lucky Lucy and Poor Pete, 2 children raised in 2 very different ways. Lucy is raised by her mother. The mother is an average native English speaker who knows around 20,000 different words. Pete's parents hire a nice nanny from a foreign country. Instead of speaking in her native language, the nanny is told to talk to Peter only in English. While her everyday English seems okay, she actually knows only around 5,000 words, 1/4 of what Anne's mom knows. Year 1 is when the language brain is developing the strongest. If Lucy is awake, half of the time her mom speaks, she will hear around 10,000 words per day and maybe 2,500 being directed at her. Directed language is what matters. Whenever her mom connects a word with an actual experience, Lucy learns its meaning. Peter hears English only when the nanny deliberately speaks to him, around 1,000 words a day. But not only is quantity lower, but also the quality. As the nanny is not fluent, there is a chance that many words come across broken. At their first birthday, both kids can say mama and papa. What we don't see is that Lucy actually already knows many, many words, even though she can't say them. But Pete's language universe is more limited. When Lucy and her mom look at picture books, her mom points out what they see. A little monkey is also a gorilla, an ape, a clever animal which uses tools, climbs trees, and lives with his mama and papa in the rainforest of Africa. When Pete looks at a picture book, his learning is limited by the language of the nanny. The same monkey is just cute and eats bananas. To compensate, he's given a language app. But as Pete lacks the foundation, he doesn't understand a word. To him, it's just a bunch of new sounds strangely connected to colorful characters. On their second birthday, Lucy knows already well over 200 words, the amount where children start to learn rules and apply grammar. Pete knows less. Sometimes he gets frustrated because he can't express himself. Lucy likes to go with her mom into the park. Sometimes they watch the old men play chess. She doesn't understand the game, but knows that there are pawns, rooks, knights, a queen and a king, a bishop and a horse. One day, she will learn the rules. It will be easy because she sees each figure clearly. Her understanding of their special skills is obvious. For a lack of language, Pete sees just a big checkered board and some wooden figures, which all look quite the same: pawns, knights, bishops. To understand the rules later will be hard for Pete. All figures look so similar. How could they do different things? At their third birthday, both can say their own name and form sentences. Lucy's vocabulary now holds 1,500 words. Pete's got 500 to make sense of this world. In year 4, they enter kindergarten. When Pete stands in front of the big shelf, he sees different wooden blocks, the ball, some old toy, a horse, and the yellow digger. When Lucy stands in front of the same shelf, she sees circles, triangles, squares, a basketball, the red pinwheel, the beige rocking horse, and the carton box of the Lego Technique digger. At playtime, Lucy understands what others are talking about and often takes the lead by suggesting a new idea. Pete often doesn't understand what she means. If the group discusses something for longer, he zones out because he has trouble following the conversation. By the end of the year, Lucy knows 3,500 words, where Pete only knows 1,000 words. Lucy now forms more complicated sentences in perfect grammar. In the evening, her mom reads bedtime stories to her. Words she's missing, she learns out of context. As a native speaker, the mom can raise and lower her voice, making the stories exciting. Fairy tales become alive in her head, and Lucy learns to imagine and to think creatively. Pete still speaks in more simple sentences, and his grammar is not perfect. When his nanny reads to him, the voice is more monotone. It's more boring, and paying attention is more difficult. Words he's missing often remain missing. By the end of the year, Lucy knows 6,000, and Pete knows 2,000 words. To understand why the actual difference in language abilities between the two is even larger than it seems, let's imagine that words are nothing but tools that help us uncode the world, form thoughts, structure ideas, and then communicate with others. With 6,000 words compared to 2,000 words, Lucy's toolbox is now 3 times the size. Lucy has a huge head start as she is entering elementary school. Einstein, by the way, as a child, seldom spoke. One interesting anecdote goes like this. As he was a late talker and hardly spoke at the age of 7, his parents were worried and tried many things to get him to speak. At one point, they were afraid that he had learning disabilities. At last, at the dinner table one night, he broke his silence to say, "The soup is too hot." Greatly relieved, his parents asked why he had never said a word before. The young genius replied, "Because up until now, everything was in order." What are your thoughts about language learning? Can someone like Pete still catch up later in life? Or maybe find other good ways to express himself? Maybe our point of view is too narrow, and Pete and Lucy actually balance each other out with the different skills they have. Please share your thoughts in the comments below.
Okay, so there we are. Now, I would like to assign you to work in pairs. You can click on this, yeah, shared Google Slides actually. I can divide you into groups then. Let me try the grouping then. How many are you altogether? 7, yeah. Probably one group consists of 3 people, yeah. Okay, Can you see that? Rahel and Sheila, go on.
Okay. So yeah, Chila can go first.
Okay, okay, go on.
For number
You can
one.
help. Yes.
So, question number one. First, I want to
Yeah.
say that I'm sorry if I get you. Uh, Question number one. How could Lucy has a different language development than Pete? First of all, in order to learn a language or speak better, you need triggering. I forget the exact words, but the activities that they need to do is it requires more conversations and in order for them to know more words and if when it comes to Lucy, as it was mentioned in the video, her mother did storytelling every night, so she uses expression, and even though like some of the words Lucy can't understand, but she learned through context. So
Mm,
she learned the exact meaning, and then she observes people's activities and special skills. So like when she like mentioned on the video, she when she go to the park with her mother, she sees people playing chess and stuff like that, and then like she learned from seeing and observing. On the other hand, Pete, as it is mentioned on the video, he learned from, if I'm not wrong, from this app, a language app and stuff like that. So there are probably no expressions or no context that he could take out of. And as it is mentioned, he had a conversation with his mate, which is only around 1,000 words, which is smaller than Lucy's conversation with people. And then next, Rachel.
Um, for number two, what factors do influence the difference? The first one, I think the amount of social interaction between um, Pete and their nanny and Lucy and her mother. And the second one, I think the language fluency of their parent slash nanny. I guess it influence it affects their the kids mastery of the language because they learn it from their parents and their parent and nanny. And the last one, I'm kind of confused how to put this into words, but from the video, it is said that Lucy's mother teach her, like when she speak to her, she gives like real life example. Like for example, she was I don't know, she was telling Lucy about teddy bear, about bears, and she gives like the real example, real life example. For example, like the teddy bear doll, and
mm.
it uh, I think it affects the children minds that they can like link between, oh, so there's this word bear, and bear looks like this, and it affects them when they grow old, so that when she grows old she can imagine the chess as like the horse and the bishops and etc.
So she
And it,
can make connections actually, yeah, for
yeah,
the
yeah, that's what
interaction.
I meant. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Very good. Probably later on, I would like to ask further what do you mean by language fluency? Yeah, so this is something that you can keep because there is something that we can explain or explore about language fluency itself. Thank
Mhm.
you, Sheila and Rahel. The next one is Divani and Tiara. I hope that if Divani cannot talk, then probably you can write down something on the chat. and probably Tiara can read the answers then. Go on.
So as we saw in the video,
Yeah, bro.
yeah, as we saw in the video, since birth, the first person who often talk with Lucy and Pete have a different in communication skill.
Mm.
As we saw in the video, Nanny, who raised Pete, has limitation in vocabulary and grammar, while Lucy Moms is a native speaker who has a better speaking skill. So I think the factor is in the first person, sir.
Okay. Okay.
I think that's all, sir.
That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
So
like,
I kind of like
Thank you.
underline
Sorry,
also.
the connection. It's
Yeah, it's
unstable.
okay, Divani. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is also another challenge of having what you call it like online learning. But I know your participation. It's okay because later on, then probably it's not only from the presentations, but also your reflection will show what you already what you call it got from the class actually. My notes the same like the previous class is motivation. I would like to discuss that further. What's so called by motivation? Okay, Tiara and Divani. Okay, the next group I would like to invite Felix and Kalista. Go on.
Okay, I'll start. Number one is how could Lucy has a different language development than Pete? I think our answer is Lucy got more exposure to broader vocabulary range and fluent speakers of the language around her, along with more stimulating activities and more expressive examples. Like in the video before, we can see that Lucy's mother tells her stories with more expressions, etc.
Mhm.
And then her mother is actually fluent in the language, unlike Pete's nanny.
Mm. Okay, okay, good, good. Anything else?
No,
Felix?
I think it's Felix.
Number two,
Okay, number two.
we think that the factors that influence the difference is the indirect or direct speaking from the parents, like the Lucy mother that interact more with her, and she has a lot of vocabularies rather than Pete's nanny,
Mm.
like vocabularies and the fluency of the speakers around the child. I think that that are the factors
This
that
also
influence the
triggered me for
difference.
another question. Fluency of the speakers. Okay, good. So two groups actually mentioning about fluency of the speakers, but again, then we would like to have looked on that point actually later on then. Anything else? Is that all?
Actually, the last,
Yeah, the last one.
we think Peter can still catch up, although
Mm.
it's a little too late for Pete. He still can catch up in life because it's not he don't have the ability to learn. It's just he is a slow learner that needs much more time and effort to learn the language. He has the potential to develop his language skills, and he needed guidance, like to teach to help him acquire more vocabs. For example, through reading.
This is what I agree actually. That's true. Yeah. Okay, good, good, good point. Good point. Next group is Lolly and Tasha. Go on.
Okay. So after watching the videos, uh, we can we can say that both Lucy and Pete has a different starting point. So as we know, Lucy is more accustomed to listen and practicing the English because her family is a native speakers, while Pete doesn't come from a native speaker. So uh, we think that it's very hard for Pete to catch up with his language skills. But we believe that he can still uh, going through that uh, if he had a if he had an extra effort and also more time and guidance, so he can master her English skills like Lucy. Maybe Lolly would add something about it.
Lily?
Okay. Yes. Hello. Maybe I will just add the point, um, the process and the factors that influence their skills. Um, I think the process and the environment are the factors that influence the difference of between Lucy and Pete. What I mean by the process is what we already know, that Pete is raised by uh, a nanny. Uh, meanwhile, Lucy raised by her mother that is native speaker. So that was quite different. And I would like to add about Peter. Uh, he still probably has another skill because um, a way to express ourselves is not only by speaking or knowing words. Maybe he has another skill to express himself, like what I give example in here is like painting or something like another. That's all for me.
The key points here, I can see that uh, between native speakers and not native speakers and the environment that you underline. Yeah, I mean that which is supporting
Yeah, it
environment. Okay,
influence, it really
good,
influence their
good.
ability.
Desi and Rani. Yo, Desi, Rani.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, my laptop ngelag, sir.
Okay, Rani probably can start first.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first one is about how could Lucy has different language developed than Pete. We think that Lucy could be different because her surrounding has provided her a good environment to develop her language, such as her mother background, her mother like to storytelling like that, and she support by her mother and her environment. While Pete, uh, he also have the supporting environment, but it's different. The nanny is different with the mother. So I mean, like he has better environment. And
Okay,
second one, Desi.
the keywords is environment in this case. Then yes. Okay, Desi.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
What can you add from the
Can you
explanation?
hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sure.
Oh yeah. For the factors, sorry. So I'm gonna explain for the what factors to influence the difference. So I think in my perception is that I feel like language it is one of the way for us to communicate because it is globally accepted one, and I think in this case, I mean in the video, maybe Lucy's interpersonal ability can be high. I don't know. Than Pete. I think it depicts when Lucy understands what others are talking about and often takes the lead by suggesting ideas. And Pete often doesn't understand what she say. And then I mean, children are unique, and I believe that we all have experienced this kind of things before, and rather shaping to adjust with we can be wider and thinking and go with their develop language development or and for the language the factors affecting language developments are, I think, cognitive process. I think it is argued that language use involves it is argued that language use involves unconscious
Process, yeah, in this
decision
case.
making, because we need to think yes, and yeah, it determined by the cognitive factors. And similarly, for the verbal environment, I think this characteristic of a neural network learning makes them suitable for capturing human language processing. And as many aspect of language acquisitions and processing involve such frequency bilinguality interactions. And I think that the frequency by regularity interactions can also comes into play when processing sequence of words. And as well as the world knowledge. And we can see in the video that uh, between Lucy and Pete, they do have a different kind of learning pace, and yeah, I think it depicts where is it learning support and resources, and yeah, and kind of thing. So for the number 3.
I'm very interested that you pay attention on the cognitive process, and you mentioned about the neural, what happens with the neurology. I mean, that something
Yeah.
related to someone's brain, yeah. Well, some people try to learn about that, but from the language sides again, then actually the influence of parents who can provide like more intimate relationship in this case would be very important, I guess. Okay, good. Thank you, Desi and Rani. The next one, Shena and Elena.
Okay, sir. So basically, how could Lucy has a different language development than Pete? Because Lucy was raised by her mom, who is an average native English speaker, and she was taught by her the words that she can speak fluently. On the other hand, Pete was raised by his Nancy, who is not a native English speaker. So uh, when we ask how come they have a different language development, it's because they have different language development process, where Lucy had more opportunities to learn, process, and express. Meanwhile, Pat has more limited opportunities to learn, since he was being taken care by his Nancy. And when we talk about the factors that influence the difference, there are two that I can mention, which is caregivers and the environment. Uh, why I said caregivers, because they were raised by a very different individual. Lucy was raised by her own mom. Meanwhile, Pet was being taken care of by his Nancy. And also the environment. Lucy's environment support her to grow, learn, and process things, and also helps her to learn language and speak it fluently. And meanwhile, Pet didn't have that opportunity in his environment. And can someone like Pet still catch up later in life, or maybe find other good ways to express himself? Yes, because there are many ways to express ourselves, as we know. For example, through writing or also other non-verbal ways. So that's from me. Maybe Deva want to add something?
I
Yes.
think what the most make it different is the educator and the guidance.
So educators and the guidance from parents, you meant here,
Yeah,
or from
and
adults.
the individual.
Okay.
Like
So I can see that Elena mentioned about the opportunity that Lucy and Pete have in this event, and also about the what do you call that, the role of adults in this case. Okay, good point. Good point. Next, I would like to invite Arin and Cindy. I think this was quite a lot though. Very good. Go on, Arin and Cindy.
Okay, so first, how Lucy has different language development than Pete. It is because
the vocabs and fluent English every day so that she has better language skills than Pete. Lucy's mother made sure that they speaks English that is easier for children to understand what the caregiver or the nanny gave difficult to speak English that will confuse Pete as well. So that here Lucy has a better language ability because, as we can see from the video, she heard her mother talk in a proper English, like in fluent one. So therefore, she gets 1,000 vocabs before she get into the school, into the kindergarten. So therefore, Lucy has a better English ability, English skills. So compared to Pete, like he doesn't get a better English ability like Lucy gets from her mother. So as he thought by nanny, his nanny was not really fluent in English. Therefore, all Pete can get was that broken English as what his nanny
Yes, so what it means from the number one, as you can see that we put the mother speaks English really well, while the caregiver have difficulty to speak English. While when we said that the mother made sure she speaks English that easier for the children, means like, of course, there are different types of English. For example, it's for kids or for your boss. That's why it's easy for Lucy to understand, while Pete, the caregiver, don't know how to differentiate who to speak to. So that's why it confuses Pete. And then number two, what factors do influence the difference? Obviously, it's the family background and the environment surrounding them. Um, the mother obviously is a native speaker. She doesn't have problem communicating, so Lucy understands it well, while Pete was left alone with the nanny that doesn't really speak English. And then another factor would be the activities that happened surrounding them, such as when they were playing in the playground or at school. Although I believe both of them have same competence, but it's just difference learning. And then number three,
Experience of learning in this case, yeah. Okay.
yeah. And number three, can someone like Pete still can catch up later in life, or maybe find another good ways to express himself? Yes, obviously he can still catch up, especially he knows the basic English. It wouldn't be really hard for him to catch up. As we said here, he would be able to catch up once he's a teenager, and the way he can catch up is from the things he would discover, such as movies, video games, and friends in school. Although it would take him a longer time for him to be on the same level as Lucy. But eventually he will be good too.
Actually, this will be our next discussions later on, that to see the process of how what do you call it, a kid develop, or I mean that in get the language, then yeah, in terms of the process of learning the language itself then. But again, then it's really interesting to know there are some, what you call that, like discussions and also debate related to this later on. Last but not least, Clarissa, Mariati, Nadila, go on.
Okay, hello.
Yes, a bit quickly, Nadila. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Okay, sir.
Mariati, yes.
Okay, for number one, how could Lucy has a different language development than Pete? I think because Lucy's mother provides her a supportive environment, and also he knows a lot of vocabulary than Pete nanny, and also Lucy's mother provides her a lot of opportunities to practice. I think to
Mm-hmm.
show um to show the new word by what showing a picture.
And also, but I think Pete does not have the opportunity same like Lucy. And number two, what factors do influence the difference? Maybe Lisa can help.
Yeah. Number two, what factors do influence the difference? We think that as Lucy Murray is a native speaker, um, she doesn't need to think about the words as she always talk. Like she only think about what she's going to share with her children, with Lucy. So Lucy can learn more about the world or about anything around her than Pete, because Pete's nanny um, has less knowledge and words and vocabulary than Lucy mother. And also it's the amount of time when Lucy listen or speak with her mother, because uh, for example when Pete nanny read Pete bedtime story, Pete didn't listen too much as from the video show, because mostly he didn't understand about what the nanny say, as the nanny is lack of knowledge and words about English. I think it's about that.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
number three,
Yes,
And number
Mariati?
three, can someone like Pete still catch up later in life or maybe find other good ways to express himself? And the answer is he may catch up, but he need more time to interact with others. Like Lucy, maybe that she was has many vocabulary and to build his communication skill. And also he can catch up by watching videos in YouTube or other platform and ask his friend for help and to improve at his skill. That's all from me.
Thank you very much. Many of you give very good answers. I could I would like to say that the key words actually that um, Lucy has a better exposure in compared to Pete in this case. Yeah, I mean that because of the parents, and also the relationship is more intimacy with her mother. The next question probably, is there any influence or is there any difference between learning or acquiring a language from two genders? I mean that male and female. Is there any difference on that? And then the last one is the questions. As you mentioned, many of you said that Pete could still work, could still improve his language, probably watching YouTube and listening to videos. Okay, that's one way, but probably here before that, actually the experience that Pete was exposed by gadget more rather than human interaction. Yeah, so that's also become a question later on for our next discussion. Okay, I think I need to stop because I need to be ready for another class. The things is actually, this is a good stepping stone for us to discuss about the difference later on between acquisition and learning. So I want you to have a look on the textbook I already provide you per chapter. See the difference between acquisitions and learning. And then later on, we would like to discuss that in the next meeting. And also pay attention on the process, on the steps of learning first language. Yeah. I mean that, or getting the first language itself. What situation happens? Probably my next question, as you mentioned, that Pete, many of you said that Pete can still learn that. So is it possible really, because there's an issue or there's a theory saying that the best way to learn a language is actually during the golden age, which is between 0 until 12 years old. Yeah. So critical thinking period. Later on, we would like to discuss about that. So please have a look, and then we'll meet again on Thursday and talk about this. Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate all your hard work. I hope that what we discussed today will be uh, good, something important, and you can learn from that. Okay, everyone, thank you very much. I'll see you again on Thursday.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you,
Thank you very
sir.
much,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Bye.